In this video, we're going to discuss 10 clear things that you need to retire with confidence. Several of these will probably surprise you. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
If you're new to the channel, hi, my name is Jeff. I'm a CPA turned author turned public speaker. I created this channel in 2020, really at the request of my daughter. She saw me helping relatives out with their finances, and she said, "Dad, if you can help them, can't you help others as well? The world is in a really dark place right now, and I think a lot of people could use your help." And with that, the channel was born. Today, we have over 65 million views, over 400,000 subscribers, over 5 million hours of watch time, and we would love it if you join our YouTube family. Simply click subscribe and turn on notifications, and you'll get alerted the next time I post a video. I post 3 or 4 times a week. All right, let's get into it. We'll start off with number 1, and this one was something that actually was a big surprise to me. It happened to me a few weeks ago, and I think if it happens to you, and I'm pretty confident it will, it'll be a surprise to you too. In fact, if you don't get this right, nothing I say in the rest of this video will matter, and that is you need to find a purpose and a routine ASAP when you go into retirement. Without a purpose and routine, you won't get the juice out of retirement. What that purpose and routine is up to you, but everybody has a pretty good idea, anyway, of what they want to be doing and what they don't want to be doing when they go into retirement. Some people want to be around family. Some people want a deeper connection with their spiritual side. Others want to engage in hobbies and sports and other activities. What it is dependent on you. For me, one of the items on there is golf. It's something that I enjoy doing. It helps me clear my head, and it helps me focus on some of the other things that I want to accomplish in my life. You could also add coin collecting, the markets, charity work, and a whole host of other aspects as well. But golf is one that is quite important. I went to visit a very close family member who lived in a southwest state, and I did what I enjoy doing on vacation anyway. This was 2 weeks ago. I golfed. I golfed a lot. Now, the golf courses in places like New Mexico and Arizona are different than they are in the New York area. First of all, they're open year-round. Second of all, something I didn't realize, but if you're golfing in, say, January, the grass on the golf course is not the same grass as if you're golfing in, say, October. The golf courses switch out grass every season or two, or at least add different grass, because no blade of grass apparently can live more than 12 months in the heat of Arizona or New Mexico. And this makes for an entirely different golf experience. Also, if you are a golfer out there, you know if you're golfing at altitude, your ball can fly farther, which mine did. But back to the point I'm trying to make. This community is quite possibly the most beautiful community I've been to, particularly coming from a place like New York, where the golf is completely different. My wife and I were in the same foursome, and she and I were in the same cart. And truth be told, she's a really good golfer. In fact, some would say that she's better than me. But on the course, I knew that she was really into it. And she looked at me and she said, "What do you think?" Now, her question was, do we want to live here someday? Whether that's 2 years away or 5 years away, I don't know. And I just looked at her and I said, "Yeah, this place is pretty amazing." It was 4 p.m. and I looked out at the painted sky and I just smiled at her. At which point she proceeded to hit the ball straight down the middle of the fairway, and mine bounced off of a cactus somewhere and got lost. I had to drop, and I dropped from where her ball was. But I digress. And that question stayed in my head for the rest of that hole. And after we teed off on the next hole, I said to her, "But it might be too perfect." And she looked at me kind of funny and said, "What do you mean?" I could see a real situation where someone would move here or their perfect place, wherever that is, and days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months very, very quickly. And time would just fly. Things would be too perfect. When you arrange your life so well and you're in that perfect place, you could get lost in all of it. And in the process, part of the struggle of life, the day-to-day thing that makes life life, goes away. And then all of a sudden time flies. And it's not 1 year later, it's 5 or 10. And without a purpose and focus, that could happen very quickly. Now, saying a place is too perfect sounds kind of funny because this is what people strive for in retirement. But trust me when I tell you, if you don't have a purpose, a plan, then everything will turn into a big blur. For you, perfect might be a small cabin on a lake in Maine, or it might be a home on the water in South Carolina, or it might be a 2-bedroom apartment in your hometown next to all of your family. Just remember, once you find that perfect place, you need to work hard to stay connected and stay engaged with people and with your community. Point number 2, a clear monthly budget. Now, the fact is, most people are not good at budgeting. You can get away with that when you're working because you can always work harder and earn a little bit more money, and you can put off today paying for the things that you need to pay for until tomorrow, or you can pay for them today and take out a loan and pay for that loan back tomorrow. But not having a budget in retirement is a lot more dangerous. Income may not be continuing to grow, and your options might be limited in terms of how you pay for things that are out of budget. And don't get me wrong, the need for a budget isn't about being frugal. It might be, but having a budget allows you to course correct if things start to drift in the wrong direction and you just don't see it, because it's the small drips in life that can deplete your net worth. It's not the things that you've planned for. Some people use a simple budget. They put it on a spreadsheet, and that's good enough for them. Others use robust financial planning software that gives them what I call sight beyond sight, really. You can see things that you couldn't see on a spreadsheet with some of the software. How you budget is up to you, but the act of budgeting is something that's supremely important in retirement. Next up, guaranteed income that you can count on. Now, there are basically 6 types of income that most people have in retirement. Now, most people also don't have all 6, but they have 2 or 3 of these. Social Security, pensions, annuities, a savings account, a 401k, an IRA, a Roth vehicle of some sort, interest income, investments, small business income, real estate rental income, part-time work, hobby income, and health savings accounts. Now, most people have 2 or 3 of these. Others have more or possess a special skill that they can monetize in retirement. Cultivating these sources over your lifetime takes time. Using them during your retirement years also takes time and dedication. You can't wing it when it comes to how you use your funds. Next up, a realistic withdrawal plan. Now, this one is quite controversial, believe it or not, because people get confused. They don't spend evenly in retirement. Most people spend more in the beginning years of retirement, less in the middle, and more at the end. In the beginning years, they spend on things like travel or gifts for family members. In the middle, they start to slow down a bit, and their obligations are truly limited. And in late stage retirement, the medical bill aspect comes into play, and things like long-term care become part of the equation for a lot of people anyway. But the rules aren't set up for a U-shaped spending pattern. The 4% rule, which basically says that you can spend up to 4% of your investment net worth plus inflation every year, is 4% plus inflation. It's not 6% in the beginning years, 2% in the middle, and 6% in the ending years. It's straight line. And the fact is, if you overspend in the beginning years, it's much harder to catch up than if you overspend in the late years of your retirement, because your portfolio has had time to grow. Now, there are more dynamic financial planning options than, say, the 4% rule. I mentioned financial planning software earlier, and there's something called a Monte Carlo simulation in financial planning software. You input your information, you tell the software what you want to accomplish in the years ahead, and it gives you a probability of success. A low probability of success score means you need to adjust your thinking and your plan. A high probability of success score means that you can, in fact, move forward, or at least consider moving forward with the plan you have in place. Next up, a plan for your health care. Now, frankly, this is the single most missed point that people make when they go into retirement. And the reason is simple. Most people, when they enter retirement, or at least a lot of people, don't enter willingly, meaning that they get laid off before they plan on retiring. If they're lucky enough to plan when they exit, it may be different, but if you're planning on retiring at age 65 and you were retired at age 62 by your company, well, you have a 3-year gap before you can take Medicare, and that is an expensive gap. Now, there are only a few ways that people typically fill the gap because you can't go without health insurance for 3 years or even 3 days, in my opinion. But number one is to get on your spouse's plan if you're married and they have a healthcare plan available. That's often very clean, somewhat inexpensive for most people, and usually what happens when one partner is laid off and their spouse is still working. If that's not available, then purchasing a plan in the healthcare marketplace is often a good idea. It can be expensive or it can be zero. It depends on your income, but the zero cost plans tend to be HMOs. The expensive ones tend to be full coverage. And finally, the last option is to go on COBRA, utilizing your company's healthcare plan. And that is what a lot of people do, frankly, until they turn 65 or until their COBRA period runs out. Once you turn 65, the world changes. That's because at age 65, you qualify for Medicare. And we have a lot of videos on this channel about Medicare, but just know that Medicare is often less expensive, even significantly less expensive than COBRA or the healthcare marketplace, and the coverage is very good. Speaking of Medicare, gang, Medicare can be confusing, it can be overwhelming, and people with good intentions will spend hours trying to find the right plan, only to make mistakes that cost them hundreds of dollars a year, maybe even more. On this channel, we have only 3 affiliate relationships. One is our trusted Medicare partner, Chapter. Chapter is the only national Medicare advisor that looks at and recommends every plan nationwide. They're totally free to you. They are very easy to work with, and they save their clients an average of $1,100 per year. If you are about ready to go on Medicare, or if you are on Medicare and you just have some questions, feel free to give them a call at 440-703-1224 to see if they can help. Next up, an emergency fund. Now, there are a lot of opinions about how much you should have in your emergency fund. And an emergency fund, at least the description of an emergency fund, is relatively new. It's been out there for 5 or 10 years. Before that, it was something that was discussed, but it was discussed in private, usually with a financial advisor and their client. But in the initial recommendation years of an emergency fund, it was 3 months. People said 3 months is the right amount of financing you should have for an emergency fund. 3 months of your income. Then it became 6. And then it stretched to 12. I saw something the other day that said 24 months is the recommended number. 2 years of cash for an emergency fund. So what's the answer? Let me help you break this down so that you know what's right for you. First, know that there are no perfect matches for an emergency fund and the size of the emergency fund and what you have planned for it. By the very nature of an emergency, you don't know what's coming, and so your best guess is about the best you can do. But as a generalization, a 3-month emergency fund is used to cover income. And these are for earners that usually have a lower financial risk, meaning that they can find another job if something goes wrong. If you're an attorney and you have a lot of clients that are repeat clients, and you can take that book of clients with you to the next law firm, 3 months is probably going to be enough. If you are a factory worker in a town with only one factory and the next factory is 100 miles away, you might want more than 3 months. Because frankly, in the second situation, you may have to retrain for another type of job, and that might take you 6 months, a year, 2 years, who knows? But the point is, you need to just assess the risk that goes along with the size of that fund. And there's no perfect match because, as I said before, the very nature of an emergency is that you don't know what that emergency is going to be or the cost. For retirees, there are several common things that you protect against. One isn't losing your job because the very nature of being in retirement is that you're not working. But there are other things that you protect against with an emergency fund. The big one that people worry about is if there's a market drop and your portfolio goes down 10% or more, and you don't want to be in a position where you have to sell your investments at a discount, well, that might be the time to use the emergency fund. If the home that you're living in needs work and you know it needs work, if your mechanicals are 10, 15, 20 years old and you know that they're going to need to be replaced at some point in the near future, well, that might inform the size of your emergency fund. If there are big medical bills in the future, if you expect to have long-term care payments in 5 or 10 years, just because you see a trend happening, that might be a very good reason to have a larger emergency fund. So the size of the emergency fund is directly related to the anticipated risk that you're trying to protect against. Next up, a tax plan. Now, taxes in retirement are supposed to be easy. At least that's what people say. But the fact is, retirement has a different set of tax issues than during your working years. During your working years, your mortgage eventually gets paid off, which is a big tax break for a lot of people, and your financial commitments tend to go down. But then a new set of tax issues pop up. Social Security, for example, can be taxable. It might not be taxable. A lot of it depends on your combined income, which is a specific calculation that lets you know how much you've earned, and anything in excess of a certain amount, a portion of your Social Security payment becomes taxable. How you manage withdrawals from your IRA or your 401k. Required minimum distributions when you hit a certain age. Those tend to have a tax effect. IRMA charges if you earn too much money. Estate planning and a whole host of other variables that you didn't need to consider during your working years. Well, in retirement, you do. Next up, a plan for inflation, because it's not invisible. Your spending will rise over time even if your lifestyle stays the same. The problem is it's out of your control because you don't control inflation. Over the past 10 years, inflation has been as low as 1.2% and as high as 8% in 2022. So it is not something that has been consistent and predictable. I still remember a conversation in 2022 about the increases in the price of food. Food, by the way, is the universal expense. Everybody has to eat. And so everybody feels a rise in the price of food. Groceries for your home rose over 11% in 2022, and the overall number was 9.9%. That's groceries and restaurant food. Other things like heating oil, natural gas, electricity depend a lot on where you live, the size of your house, and other variables, but people have to eat. The following year, food inflation dropped to 1.3%, so a big change from 11.4% the previous year. But it just demonstrates that inflation is something that's real and you need to plan for it. But there is one thing that you can do that will help you with this. And that isn't looking at CPI and saying, you know what, inflation was 8% this year or 4% or whatever the number was, therefore my expenses went up 4%. It's the ability to calculate your own personal inflation. And there are personal inflation calculators out there. Just go onto a search engine and type in personal inflation calculator, and you can drop in some information. And these calculators are pretty good at telling you what your personal inflation number looks like. Now, with this information, you can steer a lot better than just getting one number from the Consumer Price Index and saying, you know what, this is the number. This must be how I spend. It isn't for most people, by the way. Next up, a simple investment strategy that you can stick with. Now, this channel attracts a lot of DIY financial planners. And these are people that look at everything from how they invest their money all the way through to how they spend their money. Every aspect of their financial lives sometimes ends up in a spreadsheet. It depends on if you geek out on it like I do. I'll spend a lot of time just playing with the numbers, more out of curiosity than anything else. As a general rule, the more clear and sensible your investment plan is, the more likely it's going to work for you. Now, each of you is different, and each of you has different risk tolerances. This channel never tells people how to invest. That's not what we do, but we help you help yourself. So understanding your risk tolerance is supremely important if you're going to understand your investments and have a clear plan for your investments. Next up, the right legal documents. Now, I know somebody who knows that they need to update their legal documents, and they are waiting until the last minute to do the update. Now, to be candid, I don't know when they think the last minute will be, but I can promise you it won't be at the time they think it's going to be, because it never is. To be frank, I've lost count on the number of times I've told them that they need to do this, and they, in fact, agreed with me, but then they don't do it. The fact is, this is one of those things that can be really traumatic for the people that you leave behind. And even if you know you need to do it, I can tell you that 1 out of 10 people watching this video, and that might be a high statistic, 1 out of 10 people who know they need to do it will actually get it done this year. At the very least, the right legal documents include things like a will, a healthcare proxy, a power of attorney, and an update to your beneficiaries. If you have a more complicated situation, there is an entire set of trust documents that you probably should get filled out sooner rather than later. If you like this video, check out that video, the #1 factor that lowers your Social Security payment. Also, don't forget to give our partner chapter a call at 440-703-1224 to see if they can help. This is Jeff Schmidt, and I will see you in that video right there.